part 2 of this tutorial. We're going to pick up where we left off in part 1. But I did a couple of things offline, and I'll show those to you. And I also found a mistake in the drawing. And I was going to just hide it from you, but I decided, well, let me fix it online and show you how I would go about it and how easy it might be to fix. First of all, one of the things I did is I started in part 1 fixing up all of the elevation views, and I completed that with the south elevation view. Notice everything is a section cut now, and also the east elevation view. And I got rid of one section cut that didn't make a lot of sense, but I was just showing it to you as an example of how to do things by creating a section plane by layers. And I deleted that because we're going to now go to layout, and I didn't want to carry over a useless section cut. This is our diagonal cabinet section cut. But here's the mistake I found. If you look here, something looks a little strange. And if I zoom in, I find there's a couple of parts overlaying each other. And if I go look up top, I notice that this cabinet, if I choose this cabinet, notice it comes to this point here and here. If I choose this cabinet, it comes to this point. So these are overlying each other. What I want to do, when I drew this, I originally drew it for version 1 of CabWriter, and then recently I drew all the cabinets for version 2 to pick up some of the new options in version 2. And when I did, I forgot to do a couple of things. Namely, if I can get it, well, let me do it this way. One of the things I want to do is get rid of this part. So I'll unlock it and just delete it. The other thing I want to do is get rid of this part. That's the one that's overlaying this cabinet. So I'll just unlock it. I guess I got to do it from the bottom. And delete it. And now everything looks great. So the problem is that that's going to make a change in a number of drawings, not the least of which, for instance, is our base plan. Notice there's some really strange stuff going on here because we have parts overlaying each other, and we'll see it again in the upper plan. Some strange stuff there. So I'm going to have to redo those. I don't have to touch the perspective views. I don't have to touch the purchase part view or the cut list. That'll take care of itself. That part's not there on the cut list. The DXF I don't have to worry about because the part will just be gone. No problem there. And the base layout the same, no problem there. That takes care of itself. The north elevation view, probably not an issue. In fact, it doesn't reach out into this area. The west elevation view, in fact, is going to be affected, and we can see right there's the problem. So we'll start with the west elevation view, and we'll just update those. So what I can do is simply go to Draw, CabWriter, create section from a section plane, choose west elevation, all, say OK, and answer yes. Now if I look at this, I notice it's fine. And that's all it took to update the west elevation view. The south, I don't know that I need to do that. Let me just look at this for a moment. No, it's already taken care of itself. East elevation view, no problem. Base plan is a problem. So I'll just go to Draw, CabWriter, create section from a section plane. It's my base plan. So I'll check that. I'll say all, OK, and update. And now if I look at this, everything is fine, no problem. And my upper plan, things are a little messed up there, but we'll go ahead and do that. Upper plan, okay. Now it looks fine. And ladder base is probably a similar issue, so I'll do that. And that's not affected. So now I've fixed the problem, updated all of my scenes in SketchUp. So now I'm ready to go to layout. Now, first thing you should do before going to layout, if you're a professional cabinet maker, you'll want to do this. If you're not a professional cabinet maker, you're probably not using layout, but if you are, you don't need to do this. But for those professional cabinet makers, this is something you want to do. You want to create a template. And the template should start with one of the basic templates in layout, and then you can modify it to do what you want on your drawings. This is Greg's for his school, the New England School of Architectural Woodworking. And it's got his material legends here and his hatch legends here. These are the hatches he always uses. And this is for document setup. There we go. This is for 36 by 24 inch paper. Landscape paper, the height of which is 24 inches. And the width of which is 36. And notice that if we're going to put drawings inside this rectangle here, we've got to avoid this space, we've got to avoid this space, we've got to avoid this space, and we've got to avoid this space. So I've estimated on these that this is a 1 inch area here where I have to avoid putting things. I think I estimated this to be about 7 inches. This to be, I think, 1 inch or something like that. And, oh, maybe I estimated this to be 2.5 or something, and this to be 1 inch. In any case, you've got to estimate, either print out a full-size drawing and make measurements, but you've got to figure out how far in on each of these sides you can, begin to put the drawing. So I'll show you in a moment the dimensions I used. But notice this is an architectural D 24 by 36 inch. So in Layout we have our template set up. We saved it as a template. And now we're ready to come back to CabWriter and get ready to export our drawings to Layout. Now at this point we do not have a layout drawing. We simply have a template stored. And now we're going to start creating a layout drawing. And it's pretty automated. In fact, it's almost completely automated with the exceptions of annotations and adding dimensions. So one thing I want to point out, the layout stuff only works if you have SketchUp 2018. And you probably already know that SketchUp 2018 only comes in the Pro version. They're no longer producing the Make version as of 2018. So in the File menu, under CabWriter to Layout, this menu will only appear for those people who have SketchUp 2018. Now we've been using, up to this point, we've been using assign hatches and create section from a section plane. You won't find that here. You won't find that menu here, but of course it's still here, assign hatches, and it's still here, right there. So if you don't have 2018, you'll be able to do that much, and you'll be able to hatch in SketchUp. But in order to send your documents to Layout and hatch in Layout, you need to have SketchUp 2018 Pro. Okay, in that menu, the next step, after we've assigned hatches and created all of our section planes, the next step is to lay out document setup. This is a very similar dialog box to the one we just saw in Layout. What we need to do is choose a paper size. And I'm choosing the Architectural D 24 by 36 inch. Landscape. The template I just set up and saved in Layout is now in my list of templates. So I'll choose the Architectural D knee saw template. Remember I talked about the borders where we have to allow for the a certain amount of space around the borders for all of the title block stuff. That's here. 1 inch on the left, 1 inch on the top, 7 inches on the right, 2.5 inches on the bottom. And the other defaults we have here, and we can change them, but the other defaults we have here is our line weight is going to be 4/10 of a point. And the default model scale for the non-perspective views will be 1 to 10. Actually, 1 to 9 probably works a little better, but I'm going to leave it 1 to 10, and I will show you how to change these in Layout. Okay, so now we have our Layout document setup complete, and we're ready to go and transfer documents to Layout and create a layout drawing. And it's pretty simple. First thing I do is go to File menu, the Layout commands, and do the next thing in line, which is send scenes to Layout. Now when I do this, it's going to take every scene in my SketchUp drawing, send it to Layout with using the template that I specified in the setup, and then it'll open the Layout application. It may take a little while, it may take 30 or 40 seconds or something, so just be patient, but you will eventually see the Layout package opened up and you'll see your scenes. Now it says your model has been saved, your model has been changed. Do you want to save it before proceeding? And the answer is yes. So we'll wait, be patient. Okay, now notice that I have a cover page and it's blank. But below it, I have a bunch of scenes. Northwest perspective, northeast perspective, northeast perspective, southeast, southwest, purchase parts, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at them, each one of them. Here's the northwest perspective. Notice down here, it put the scene name in the name of the drawing. It also took the project name and put it here. That's the same project name that exists here. And it does that for each of these scenes. Now notice that the perspective scenes might go off the page a little bit, and that if you select them, there's no real scale to perspective drawings. You can't scale them. But what you can do in here is you can bring them you can do that, and then open this up a little bit. And notice now you're getting more of the view on scene. So you might want to do that to this one too, although that's not too bad. All you're losing here is walls. You're not losing any of the cabinets. That's nice. That's nice. All right, now the rest of them are scaled drawings. This is the purchase parts scene. If I wanted to, I could choose this, go to the scale. It's 1 to 10. That was our default scale. I can change that, for instance, to 1 to 9. And it fits a little better on the page. The cutlass scene. Probably I could do 1 to 9 as well. Not that I care about that scene anyway. I probably will eliminate it from the drawing. It was only used to create my cut list. But I can go to 1 to 9, I guess. And I should have stayed with what I had before, so I'll just undo that. Okay, I don't want to take a lot of time doing this. The DXF scene, I probably won't keep that. And the base layout. Elevation views. Now these are important. I'm going to dimension these, so I probably do want to scale these. So I'll choose this, and I'm going to go to a scale of 1 to 8 maybe. That's better. And west elevation, maybe 1 to 7. And let's see, south elevation, also 1 to 7 maybe. Too much, 1 to 8. I need to leave room for dimensioning. And I'm going to go east elevation. I'll finish these up as quickly as I can. East elevation. Maybe even 1 to 5. I'll try 1 to 6. Good enough. Base plan, 1 to 9. Upper plan, 1 to 9. Ladder base, 1 to 9. And finally, diagonal. Now notice there's no hatching here in any of these. So let's go pick the hatching up. Let's go back to CabWriter. I'm going to save this. And close it. Here I am back at CabWriter. So now what I can do, let's go to Layout and do the final step. We've done all this. Now all I have to do is do the final step. This too will take a few minutes, or not a few minutes, but a number of seconds. We'll be patient, and it opens it up. And now notice we have our hatching. Got the honeycomb. I think this is aluminum. I forget what that is, but you have all the hatching. And we've got the drawings that we wanted. Let me zoom the page here. Okay, so that's how you create all of the scenes and all of the hatches in Layout. And at this point, I've done nothing to draw on Layout. It's all automated. Now, of course, what you want to do is you want to use the normal layout tools like dimensioning and what have you to put your dimensions on these layers. You might want to create a dimension layer down here and use that layer to put your dimensions on, not the hatch layer. Put them on the dimension layer. Okay, I'm not going to do the dimensioning. We got some other reports we have to finish, but we can save this. Close it. All right, finally, I want to go back and we want to produce the rest of our documentation. So we'll go to CabWriter Production Documentation. When I click that, it's telling me creating production documentation can take on the order of several minutes. If your outliner dialog box is open, please close it before proceeding. It can double or triple the computation time. Now, I happen to have outliner opened, I believe. Well, I'll have to close it once I close this. The production documentation dialog box will remain open while computation is proceeding. All right, this outliner I want to close. And now what I have to choose the type of documentation I want to produce. And I also have to assign scenes to the types of documentation. One type of documentation is the door and draw reports. If I'm going to be purchasing door and draws, I want a door and draw report. And so what I assign to that is the purchased parts scene. I'm going to create a cut list, and similarly, I want to assign the cut list scene to my cut list reports. And I want to assign the DXF scene to the DXF reports. I have the option in the door and draw reports to oversize them. Some people like to oversize their door and draws when they order them. Perhaps a 1/16 of an inch on every side, so that when they get them back, they can do what they want to do in their shop to, finish size them. And some people don't want to oversize them. They just trust their supplier to do the right thing. If you want to oversize them, you can put a dimension in here, but remember, it applies to every edge. So if you put a 1/16 in there, it'll oversize every edge by a 1/16. Okay, I'm going to leave that blank. And the reports I want the draw fronts report. I want the draw boxes report, the doors report. I'm only going to do one cut list report, and I'm going to do the spreadsheet one. And I'm going to choose DXF by material name and thickness. And I'll say OK. Now, like I said, this is going to take a good minute at least, and I don't want to sit here on the video for a minute. So I'm going to start it and then come back. Okay, so it's told me it produced all of the reports, and they've been placed in a directory on my desktop. Well, it turns out my model is on my desktop, and that's why it placed the directory on my desktop. And the directory is called CabWriter Comprehensive. So I say OK. And now I'll go to my desktop. And I'll go to CabWriter Comprehensive. And lo and behold, I have a bunch of reports. So let me bring up, first of all, the door and draw reports. I'm going to open those with OpenOffice Calc. I'll say OK. All right. Let me increase the size of this. All right. Now the first thing you want to notice is this is the door and draw schedule. The project name is CabWriter. No customer name, but you could put one in there. Actually, the customer name comes right off of the project page of the CabWriter settings, and a timestamp that tells you when this was produced. I have no oversizing of the doors and draws. So the first thing it's going to do is tell me about slab doors. I only have one in the project. And here's the prefix of that door. It's made of maple plywood. It's 6.5 inches wide. This is the height and thickness and the quantity. I only have one. Next thing it's going to tell me about is the frame and panel doors. It'll give me the subassembly name for each of the doors, the frame material, that is the hardwood, the panel material, the plywood. It'll tell me the width of the door and the height of the door. And if I provided a thickness, an oversizing thickness, that would have been calculated into this. And then it also gives me the thickness of the door, the quantity right here that I need for each one, and the style width, top rail width, and bottom rail width. These could be useful to the third-party manufacturer as to what the finished width wants to be. Slab draw fronts, very similar kind of things. The subassembly name, the slab material, the width, height, and thickness, and quantity. The frame and panel door fronts, very similar to the doors, but these are the draw fronts, same kind of information. And then the number of slides and the manufacturer and the part number and the quantity of slides you need, and these are in pairs. And lastly, the boxes. And there are a number of boxes. This is the width of the box, the height of the box, depth of the box, and the quantity of each box you need. So that's the door and draw report. This is the cut list report. I'll also open that with Open Office Calc. So here's the rough lumber, and this is just like the cut list you're familiar with. And down here is the sheet goods. You used to see a report down here for all the draw boxes and what have you. It's not there anymore because it's on its own separate report, so it's not cluttered up in this cut list report. So there you go. The DXF files are in here, and I have 3 of them. And if you want, I can actually display one of those for you. Let's go to Cut 2D Pro. And I'll open up a new file here. And it's going to be on plywood, 96 inches long by 48 inches wide. And I'll say OK. And I'll say import, vectors. And I'm going to go to my CabWriter folder, and I'll pick out the 3/4 inch plywood for the moment, not the finished 3/4 inch finished plywood, which is what most of the boxes are made out of. Open that up. And do a little processing here and say preview it. It's processing down here. There we have each of the sheets in our project. These are all the sheets, and I can pick any one of them to look at, like that one. And look at it in more detail. And there you go. So I've exported my DXF and I've looked at them in Cut 2D Pro. All right. So that's all of the CabWriter documentation. And it was pretty simple. And I've got a lot of documentation. I've got my layout file, I've got my cut list, I've got my purchased parts, I got the DXF. So that's it. And it was that simple. Okay, until the next video.